Maybe we do it this way. Hello. This is a sound test. Okay, then I will connect the picture. Hi everyone. Let me just open that window here. Yes. Hello everyone. My name is Stefan Frolov. We are back to our usual routines with the NordSync project online seminars. I'm very happy that Maimu and Carl found time to join us today on Sunday for our little podcast-like seminar. I'm extremely happy to be able to continue with that project we started last year, and we already had four different meetings with different musicians and artists, all working in different fields, but united by one idea of combining different genres of art into one new art. And today we have our beautiful guests, Maimu from Estonia, who plays accordion, and Carl, who plays violin from Stockholm. And I on purpose don't say more about what they do because I hope they will do it themselves. I think Maimu, do you mind starting? How does it feel? Yeah. Yeah, it works. It works. Mimo, just wait a second. I think there is a problem on sound on you. I just will have to adjust that. Give me 1 second. It's a little bit new equipment here. I just need to make that work somehow.
One, two, three. This is a sound test.
1, 2, 3. This is a sound test.
2, 3. Sound test. Sound test.
That is. Let's try like that maybe.
Sound test. One,
So I have this person who's helping me with that. Yeah, now it works, they say.
1, 2, 3. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I think now it works. But we definitely need to employ a technician by now.
I see.
She says she can hear you, but it's a little bit low on volume.
Okay, let me see my own audio. Audio settings, microphone. 1, 2, 3. Is it any better?
Yeah, I hear you better at least.
Okay,
Yeah.
I adjusted my microphone. If that's not good, I could also use my AirPods or something else. But how is it now? Is it any better?
Well, here it's a little delay also.
A little delay. Coming all the way from Finland.
Are you in Finland now?
Yes.
Yay! Where?
Yeah. In Helsinki.
In Helsinki. Wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
Shall I try with my AirPods?
No, I think it's good now. Yeah, we are receiving good feedbacks. Yes, I think we can continue.
Okay. So how come I'm here? the thing is that I was studying as part of this special master's program called the Nordic Master in Folk Music. It was a traveling master's where I spent half a year in Sweden, half a year in Denmark, half a year in Finland, and I was supposed to live and study also in Norway, but due to COVID, that didn't quite happen.
Right.
I had some online lessons from the Bergen. Wow, I'm talking like, wow. Anyway, mixing languages. Anyway, so
that's welcomed here. We do that with music and languages. That's perfectly fine.
Thank you. At the Volleyball Academy, I actually ended up having online lessons there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, shall I then try to share my screen?
Yes, and yep, that should be working.
Is it working?
Yeah, I mean, I pressed yes, so I guess it should be somewhere here.
Okay, let's see. Okay, here we are. Now it doesn't want to work. Does it work? Welcome. Oh, this is not where we start from. Yes, that's where we start from.
Yeah.
So the very first project where I was mixing music and another form of art was back in 2017. It was a collaboration together with a circus artist, Grete Gross. She is a circus artist who is doing aerial acrobatics.
Wow.
And we decided to create an experience where people they get to explore their own local area. And Grete was choosing a tree which would be the main part of the performance, where she was putting all this aerial equipment to the tree and was practicing there. And then me and Hanna-Liis Lau, an Estonian bagpipe player and nowadays an Alexander technique teacher, we were responsible for the music. And we created this so that we were walking through the path that the people who were experiencing this were also walking, and then inspired by the nature, we improvised, and also we included some of Estonian folk music tunes and songs, because it took place in Estonia. 1 year in Tallinn, in the old town actually, and another year in a smaller city called Haapsalu. And let's see if we are able to see a little snippet of it here. Tell me if it works or not. Do you see a video now?
Yes, yeah, it's streamed. The question is the sound, always.
Oh, no, let's see. No sound? Yes, sound.
Yeah, I would rather say no sound, unfortunately. But we can, you know what? We will attach it beneath the video. That's always nicer quality to watch. I apologize for this technical imperfection of this connection. This needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, but we can look at the video. Meanwhile, I'll talk a little bit about it. Exactly. So if you see the video moving.
Yes, it's working. Yeah.
So there you can see the tree and that was actually our final destination. So the walk started, let's go back a little bit, with Grete, who was the performer of the theatrical part mostly. That was her, and she was guiding everybody through the walk and helping them to see the area around them from a different light and to experience it in a more magical way. And we were there accompanying with music and not really too much being very theatrical ourselves in this piece. Yes. So
It's like going back to the roots of the music itself, when the music served a very practical purpose, like accompanying people for their happy moments or celebrations. This, it really resonates with our goals, with what we do. Great. Was Greta also from Estonia, your partner in this project?
Yes, she's also Estonian, and she went to a theater school in Finland, actually, and studied there. Theater, I'm sorry, even circus. There is a circus school. Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on. There's many more to share. Okay, let's go back to present. You guys, where shall I put you? So, whoops. Yeah. So, let's see. I had an honor of working together with an animation artist for 2 different works, and it started with Terje Henk, another Estonian person. She reached out to me in 2018 that she has found my music and she really enjoys it. By that time, I had released my first solo album, Pühendus, which means dedication. And one of the songs there, The Circle, resonated with her, and she created the animation for my music, which already existed. So let's see. It's also possible to watch it. I don't know if you can hear this one. Maybe it's too loud. But here, so this time around, music was there and then animation was born, inspired by the music. And later on, a few years after that, she asked me to collaborate on a project where the roles were reversed in a way. She had already created an animation and she was looking for someone to create the
soundtrack.
Exactly, yes. And then that one was exciting because I got to start from scratch, see how to react to the image that she had created. And what was exciting about it was that it was a pedagogical material for children to learn about feelings. So let's see, that one is not online, but maybe I can share a little glimpse on my computer. Okay.
That sounds all very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially like this reversed way of working when you have to when the cartoon was made upon your music. This is I mean it's more traditional to write the music for a cartoon, but this way it's very exciting. What's the name of the animator?
Terje Henk.
Terje Henk.
Yeah, she was living in Portugal for many years together with her family, and it was one of the craziest experiences for me that she applied to show the animation later at different animation festivals, and it was premiered at Monstra Animation Festival in Lisbon, and she invited me to play the piece there live. So it was shown on a big screen, and then I was playing there for 3 minutes, 20 seconds, and that was the whole gig.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So here we have the animation from 2021. Let's see.
Kes see tunne on? Viha.
Oh yes, I used piano and
Viha on kui kutsumata külaline. Ta tungib tuppa kui üle mõistuse suur sajajalgne. Viha ei anna asu. Ta muudkui pressib peale ja võtab hinge kinni.
Wow.
Hirmus kole ja lämmatav. vihalaine lööb pea kohal kokku ja moodustab parve, mille mõju tunnevad teisedki. Vihamullid mulksuvad ja süüdistused mürgitavad meeli. Vihajõu võib kustutada kurbus. Kurbus on vihm, mille sõrmed uuristavad end pinnasest läbi. Kurbuse sees kriibib pettumus. Pettumus on kui nõtke kass.
Yes, we have to definitely attach it to so that people can enjoy it with a good sound. But it's very unique how well the style of the painting combines with accordion sound. This is like a very unique combination. It's really fascinating. Was there any prizes awarded to that movie?
Unfortunately not, but
Not
it
yet.
not yet, yes.
That's really cool cartoon. I think maybe I've seen the first one you showed on your page. It's
wonderful.
It's really cool. I like this kind of collaborations. It's
and it's nice that it was created together. The circle can be so many things, and for me, the piece itself also means, in a way, life comes in circles. There's things that start to repeat. There's things that we come back to in life, and there's things that we find out and then come back to. And then for the animation, she created, if you guys have the time to watch the whole thing, then you will see that it starts with a bee, and kind of the life circle ends up with a fish who was caught and then eaten by a man who was having dinner or something like that. So
wow.
the circle
Really
of
cool.
life, in a way.
Yes.
There's there are also some theater collaborations I have been part of. Let me see. Let's move on with this one. Now I found a good one. Okay. So before it was presenting well, and now it doesn't want to. No.
Oh, that's typical how it works.
No. One moment, please. Sorry.
It's totally fine. It's Sunday after all.
Yes. Have you had your tea or coffee already, Stefan?
I had lots of coffees.
Very good. Okay.
Maybe you can just move slide to slide. Yeah, that's best.
Yeah. Okay. So now we get to an interesting collaboration. So maybe some of you know, but the University of the Arts Helsinki is a university that combines 3 academies. We have Theater Academy, we have Arts Academy, and then we have Sibelius Academy, the Music Academy, where I was studying. And I started off as an exchange student in 2018. And of course, I took part in all the parties and all the hangouts. So I made a lot of friends there. And one of them was a Hungarian theater pedagogue, Nori Varga. And it's amazing how the people that you meet, they might end up being your colleagues and collaborators. So guys, a tip here, always look out for nice people. Well, anyway, it doesn't always have to be about work. But with Nori, we established a nice friendship. And then when I was back during my studies, the semester that I was spending in Finland, then that was the time that she was working on her master's project. And as mentioned, she is she was a theater student back then, and her master's project was called My Eye Candy, My Somatic Fiction, and My Body Archive. And that was something that for me was the first time to be working on a project where we all shared all of the roles. So the idea was that everybody is equal and everybody is equally responsible for every part of the project. And I remember I was very scared because it's something I've never done in that way, and I don't know how to pronounce the person's name, but Blaue Frau, it's a method of his or theirs, and it's a way of working in a non-hierarchical way. So then it was not only me who was responsible for the music, but all of the other people in the working group, and all of us had different specialties that we work on. So my specialty actually is music. We have Nora Varga, her specialties, of course, theater. Mintu Maria Makkonen, also theater. Ines Masanti is actually a visual artist. But in the project, we mixed those roles up. We met up and worked so that we were reading materials that Nori brought to us. And the themes were based on feminist new materialism. So a topic that's where we were focusing on how do we feel our bodies, how do we see our bodies, and about embodied knowledge in bodies. The idea was to create a theater performance, but due to the second wave of COVID, we just had to go another way, and we recorded different scenes that we were working on. And one of them is here. I'm afraid that it will be again without sound, but it's okay, you can later see it. So in this scene we're all on stage. There were some of the scenes where it was just one and I was playing the keyboard at one point. And yeah, it was something where even the technical parts of what kind of visual outcome do we want, what kind of lights, that was my responsibility as well. And I remember feeling a little bit overwhelmed by it, but in the end it was a very pleasant experience.
I guess it should be quite enriching also, that you have to widen your kind of perception as an artist to the areas where you normally don't pay as much attention, like colors and I don't know, position of the objects and stuff like that. It's exciting.
And so relevant in these days, or today's world, where as a musician, I don't only get to play music, I have to be my own manager, and I have to be my own agent, do everything, social media. So I think I learned a lot from this.
And that was a part of your studies in the Helsinki, or was it like a side project?
It was kind of a side project, but because the universities are connected, I could get some credits for it. So it went through like that. And one of the scenes that was more centered around me was this seat called Heavy Seat performance, where I was sharing about my experiences being an accordionist and how as a woman there are different periods literally in our lives. So how this affects playing and just kind of
it's sort of empowering. I really like that idea of bringing everything on exposure. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
I was happy that they were there to help me, because for me, being on stage, I have done that, but being on the stage in a way where I'm also an actor in a way, I felt a little bit naked, and they helped me through it, which was very, very nice.
And by they, you mean your colleagues in that project?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
who
thank you.
work mostly with visuals, as far as I understand.
And theater, yes.
And theater, yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes. And with Nori, my favorite project, which I know I'm running out of time, but I will briefly touch upon this. The tale of the things that could have been said. It's a shadow theater, puppet shadow theater performance that we created together. And it's based on Finno-Ugric fairy tales. The main storyline goes around this Mari fairy tale, but there are elements from all Finno-Ugric fairy tales. And the music is also only from Finno-Ugric peoples. And I have found a sheet book where I found some Vodja and also Mari songs that I used in the performance. And yeah, again, I will link it, and there's a little teaser that we made. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, it's a shadow theater.
Yes, shadow puppet theater.
Wow.
Yeah. And it goes, the whole topic was how a tree, that's a Hungarian element, that a tree opens up and opens the way to the underworld. So yeah.
Wonderful. Really, really nice. I was asked a couple of times during during the COVID time to play a little puppet role in one of those shows. This is very tricky business. Doesn't look so, but it's very tricky. That's
Yes,
really
and
looks
it's
fun.
so exciting. We created, it was COVID times, and we applied for funding, which we thankfully also got partially. And thank you, Taike. And we built the stage or the screen ourselves, and all the puppets were made out of paper by Nori herself. And we created the music also, and the storyline together. So that was the most immersive project for me out of, well, also of course the previous project, but things happened hand in hand and at the same time. So yeah. I think these are for now all of, I guess there's more, but I thought that would be nice to share. These projects would be nice to share.
Thank you, Maimu. This is a very beautiful presentation, by the way. Really nicely made. Beautiful projects. I will have a couple of questions, and I'm sorry if they're a little bit like, from my perspective, I'm just always being very curious how certain things work for folk musicians. Like, because I'm being classical musician, Carl here too, being a classical musician, classically educated. By the way, Carl, you can participate in the discussion. You don't have to be quiet all the time. We are all together here in this. Yes. I was just curious, how does education for accordionists start? Do you start it at school at the age of what age? 6, 7, or how small can you be starting holding this huge instrument?
That's a great question. I think you could be even as little as 3. I have seen very small accordions.
Okay.
But being a teacher myself, I haven't had that young students.
No.
So the youngest I have taught are, I think, 5, because there are many sizes for accordions, and I encourage people to get the small ones for their children so that they can explore and, I don't know, maybe fall in love, hopefully, and if not, then just make loud sounds and annoy everybody. But the education is very similar. At least I went through a very classical training at first, because I didn't have a chance to go straight into folk music. So I first started with classical accordion, and then later on explored jazz music and then folk music.
So it's like in the school first whatever 9 years you're actually playing like Bach and stuff like that, polyphonic works, because in my understanding accordion is a very a very independent kind of accomplished instrument. You can play whatever. You don't need the piano to accompany you, for example, right? Because you basically have everything. You have orchestra in your hands.
Exactly. And that's an interesting thing because I went to a music school in Buru, and my sister, who's 1 year older than me, she also joined, and it was me who was pushing that I want to learn the accordion. She would have preferred piano, but there was more space for they didn't have as many accordion students. So both of us were given a chance to learn the accordion. And then my teacher, we had different teachers. My teacher was a little bit rebel, giving me pieces that were maybe more jazz and popular music, and her teacher was giving her music that was more Bach and
Okay.
even some.
So it can be very
Handel.
different, actually. There is not like a one track everyone takes, sort of.
No, yes.
No. And then you got to high school. Was it in Stockholm or you studied somewhere before?
Yeah, before I actually studied music high school. That was in Estonia still, and I studied jazz music, rhythmic music, and that's where I built a good base for my future because I compose a lot and I also improvise. So then that was the time to get to know what does it mean to improvise? What are scales? Actually, what do we do with them?
Yeah, I'm curious about that exactly because all those projects you showed, they very clearly show how you have to think outside the box all the time, sort of in order to reach audiences. Like this project with Tree Circus, where you actually come to the audience and you go together with them, or the animation project or anything like that. It's just, in my opinion, some things I didn't have as a part of my studies when I was studying classical music. I was curious if your education, in any case, prepared you for all those challenges with reaching out for new audiences, finding your audiences, finding your voice in the art. How would you describe your path in that sense?
Yeah, finding audiences, that's a very difficult thing actually. How do we find the right audience for what we do? In a way, my education helped me to not be stuck in only one area. Even when I was studying in Tallinn, that was when I was studying for my bachelor's. I was starting with jazz, then I decided to go into folk music. But even in my studies in folk music, we had some classical courses included in our curriculum. So I was learning about instruments and orchestration and composition. So I think that was supporting what I have become now, that I have the courage to try. And even the composition, it wasn't only classical approach that I was learning about. I learned also about the jazz approach. So how can I create or be open to creation? And I think that definitely helped with being able to work with these projects. But reaching audiences and all that, I guess that's something that I sometimes still struggle with, that I don't know if that has been very clear, even though during our masters we had a wonderful course in each of the universities called music management. And we had local professionals who shared their knowledge about how things work in each country, in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. And I think that was one of my favorite courses because that was practically exactly what you need as a musician. What kind of festivals there are, what kind of funding opportunities there are. So that was the first time when I had an actual lesson about where to reach out to and how.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sounding very, very kind of tricky and scary in a way because once you're done studying, you don't really have a clear path what you're gonna do. It's very different from classical music world, or at least like our with Carl world, where you at least know that there are a handful of orchestras which are looking for musicians, and it's at least 20 positions in each orchestra for violinists. So you kind of understand a little bit where the path lies, while I'm not aware of any accordionists orchestras. Maybe there are some though. But so this kind of really is interesting me. How do you, if your way of thinking is somehow different since you are studying, if the
Yeah.
school is preparing you that you're gonna be a soloist all your life, or that you need to create some ensembles where you are playing a role, something like that. But I suppose you already answered that question, that yeah, some courses were helpful, or
Yeah, that's a good point. That how does it differ now as opposed to when I was a student, and how I was prepared. Literally, I understand your question better. Thanks for clearing that. I think, yeah, I thought that I was ready, and I thought that I know that I have to create my own jobs, and I was finding students, private students, already while I was studying. I was creating my own brand, let's say, while I was studying. It wasn't that I was hoping that school will give me something, that I was still working on my second album even while I was studying, and released it during my studies. So I had a bit of courage in that sense to think that, okay, even though I don't have a master's yet, I am someone, I have something to say, and I will find places to perform myself and all that. And now after graduation, the reality still hit me a little bit hard, because I knew that there wouldn't be jobs waiting for me, but then the reality of having those gigs, the situation in the world isn't really forgiving right now. It's a bit difficult to find gigs, and yeah, it's still a little bit tough.
kind of complicated. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
In this sense, how all those, I don't know if that presentation you made especially for this event today, focusing on interdisciplinary productions, or that's actually a bigger part of your creative process now, that you are combining different genres, either animation or circus, or how big part of your art is interdisciplinary nowadays?
I am open for new collaborations, but at the same time, I myself I noticed that I am working on less multidisciplinary works at this point of my life. But as I mentioned in the beginning, I am a barista as well, and I have been diving more into my other passion of coffee. So I have been thinking about how can I connect them, and who knows, I shall not say much.
I like that thinking. Certainly, there is a way to connect music and food by many ways, especially when it comes. Yeah.
I haven't seen any. Oh no, actually, I have. I went to a show in Porvoo, Swedish, Finnish Swedish theater group. They were combining food and theater and music, and that was pretty nice. But that's the only one I have seen, performance with food and theater and music.
I would definitely pay some money to find out how the Arabica sounds like, or Mexican roast or something. I don't know what is it called. I'm not a coffee person, but I would definitely appreciate some sound cover for a certain type of coffee. That would be a wonderful project. If you decide to go with that, we can find something out together. That would be an interesting thing. And Stockholm has so many beautiful coffee places. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
yes.
so does Oslo. So that would be a great
Yeah.
project. Yeah.
Actually, this summer I visited Stockholm many times, and if you guys haven't been to Drop Coffee, then you should go there. It's the best
Drop Coffee. Have you been there, Carl?
I have been there actually. Just when I moved here, I lived really close to it. My first year in Stockholm, so I went there then. Yeah.
That's the place. Was your interest to coffee always there, or it developed lately?
That started by first out of need. So when I was studying in Tallinn, I needed a job to pay for my studies, and I decided that I will do something, whatever. I have previously worked at a bookstore, and then I was thinking what could be nice, and there is a cafe right next to the academy in Tallinn, and I thought, oh, imagine if I worked here, I could just drop by the cafe and then go to school and all of that, and that's how I got into coffee, and somehow the interest became bigger and bigger. There was a period of time where I took a small break of music and I was just working at a cafe, and then I even went through a European level barista training, and and yeah, so I've been, that kind of just sparked while I was working there, and
yeah, that's how the true love happens.
yeah.
One last question, Maimu. I was to round this up. I was curious if you think that your area where you do your art does require some changes, like globally. If you could address that, and I put that question very open and very wide on purpose. Is there like something you sometimes think that maybe should have been different in your area, in the folk music or in the world music? What is particularly pissing you off, maybe, or something you think?
Do you mean more just in the area or also location-wise where I am based?
Oh,
Or...
you can do both, because I guess there are some global challenges, but of course it's more interesting when it comes to certain places, especially since we are living quite close.
Yeah. Yeah. Because first thing came into my mind locally that I wish there was more live music around us. I wish there were more opportunities to share the music, because folk music has always been the music of the people, and it always becomes something else through us musicians playing together. And I wish there was more, because there's maybe 2 jams monthly and maybe 2-3 dance evenings, and we're talking about Helsinki area. But if you go to smaller places, I don't know how often this live music is around us, and I wish it was. Maybe that's also a global thing. I don't know about other places.
You mean like places like concert venues, or rather some sort of clubs where people are more casual?
I think actually even both, because the scene, concerts and seeing live music or going to a concert, of course it happens, and there are venues in Helsinki and many in Stockholm and Oslo, but somehow I feel like it should be that there could be much more, and people, I wish it was more easy to run into a place that, oh yeah, there's a show tonight and we'll go there. Or I don't know, I wish it was more part of, and not only musicians that we go, and not only those who study together, even then after you graduate, go and attend concerts and go and see what other people are doing. So I feel like there could be more of live interactions.
The next question is, the follow-up question would be, of course, what do you think is the reason for that? Is the reason really some kind of lack of interest to that, or it's just an organizational problem that there is not enough people enthusiastic enough to start this kind of arenas?
I guess economical difficulty is one thing, definitely. that nowadays, at least, let's say 10 years ago, I would text some cafes that, hey guys, could I come and play? Would you be able to
pay
something? And it was more possible, but nowadays they say that we earn more if you don't come, because then we can sell more. Yeah.
That's a depressing note to end on.
Oh, okay, let's find something else.
No, but this is the reality of it. But that's sort of why we are trying to reopen music through this interdisciplinary approach, because I think,
Yeah.
right?
And the good thing is that to see how many different things are possible, like this walk in the nature with music and theater and animation, how many possibilities there are. So in that sense, I think it's wonderful to see what can be done, and really to see where music lives, and it lives in between us and among us.
That's much better ending. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maimu. I hope you can stay with us for another 45 minutes. We're going to continue with Carl. Hi, Carl.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing fine.
Where are you?
It's very interesting. I'm at home in Stockholm.
In Stockholm.
It was very interesting to listen to. It's a sort of different world than what I'm used to. I think I'll talk a bit about that, the sort of classical music world and its limitations, and what we might need to challenge and change about that. And I don't know, things to learn from other genres is like a main thing for me. So to hear someone who's so well acquainted with a different genre that I think we have a lot to learn from is very interesting, actually.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Carl, do you think it's possible to adjust the microphone just a tiny bit so it's a little bit louder? Or?
I don't know how to do that, but
are you using Mac or iPad or?
It's an iPad.
iPad. Yeah, probably it's not possible then. I'll try to just adjust it here a little bit. Just give me a second.
If you think it will be better without my headphones, I'll remove my headphones. Maybe that is the thing.
No, I think it's fine. I mean, it's probably a little bit low, but then people can just turn on and I will speak very quiet. Yes.
Okay. All good.
Yes.
So yeah, also my presentation is not nearly as well prepared as mine was in terms of showing stuff. But I'll just tell instead. And I also told you earlier, Stefan, that I mean, break in to ask questions whenever, because which direction this goes is kind of entirely up to us in the moment. But I suppose, I mean, the reason you asked me to, I mean, let's be real, the real reason you asked me to come and talk is because of the orchestra that I kind of run and founded once upon a time, called Skallsjö Sommarorkester, which is, so I'll talk around that and we'll see what happens.
Can you, before that, Carl, just very, very briefly tell a little bit about yourself so that people know what you do, what you play, where you work.
Right. So I'm a violinist. I'm from Gothenburg, Sweden. I played, I'm a classical violinist. In a way, I had a slightly different path, maybe the opposite, that I actually started with quite a lot of folk music, but went deeper into the classical world. For me growing up, the summer months were a no-go zone for classical music. I refused to play classical for almost half a year up until I was like 12, 13. But anyway, now I'm a classical musician. I am currently employed as a concertmaster at the Royal Swedish Opera. Right at this very moment, though, I'm on a half-year contract as concertmaster of the Swedish Radio Symphony Orchestra, which is so it's just kind of a little fun exchange thing. So I'm not at the opera at the moment. Other than that, I've always thought I want as sort of varied of a career as I possibly could within music. So I'll try to play as much chamber music as possible. I do quite a lot of that. Try to play solo occasionally, which I do sometimes course, finding opportunities for that is limited, but, you know, recitals, I teach a bit. I'd like to do more of that. I wish I could say I compose, but I do arrange on quite a sort of level of high creativity and high sort of, I mean, it's more than just arrange. I mean, we'll get into that maybe. But, so yeah, I've got some creative parts of my work life also. But that's basically me. I don't think necessarily that's the interesting thing here. Except, I mean, of course, maybe if you think it is, then ask. But so that's me.
Yeah, I was curious to start with. You said that you are coming sort of the opposite way than Maimu from the folk music. How usual is that in Sweden, that you are coming to classical music from the folk?
I mean, I think it's quite, it's not at all unusual, and I think there's many examples that have done it much more heavily than me, as in that they are introduced to music mainly through folk music. If you come from certain parts of the country, there's violins everywhere and there's music everywhere, but not classical music, rather folk music. For me, of course, it's not that. It's not so clear. I'm from a big city, from a musical family, so classical music is a very, 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 very natural part of my life. But I think I learned to sort of love to play more from the folk side of things.
Yeah.
And then you know, it's about like
we approve. Yeah,
learning another instrument. So I think actually looking back, I've had quite a lot of elements from the folk music embedded in my own musicianship that has actually helped to remain curious in a way, and remain to have this feeling that what I do is somewhat creative, even though in my view, being a classical musician is really most of the time not a very creative profession. It's not a very artistic profession most of the time. Even I feel like it's the craftsmanship rather than anything else, and sometimes bordering on sports with trying to just.
We have to come back to that after we talk about your orchestra. We definitely have to come back to that theme. I find it extremely intriguing and provocative.
I know.
Which we like here.
No, okay. So I'll just briefly go through the what the orchestra is. So now people know who I am, I guess. Yes. And so the orchestra is basically founded from the same ideals that I've been hinting at, but like wanting sort of freedom from music. And in classical music education, you're also very tightly controlled most of the time. There's which is, I mean, great. There's experts and teachers everywhere, and in youth orchestra, there's a conductor who strictly tells you what to do, prepares you for life as a classical musician. But that's not necessarily why we all got into music. It's for the sort of freedom of expressing yourself that is the point. So when I was 16 or 17, I thought I wanted to create a sort of arena for where classical musicians, or string players more specifically, could actually be a little free, just do kind of what we want. And alongside that, there's the idea that classical music is, for me, the music itself is one thing, and then the sort of culture around the music is another thing. And I think the music itself is the most wonderful thing ever. I love it. I've dedicated my life to it. But the culture around it, I honestly kind of hate. I think it does the music a disservice most of the time. And so that was the other founding idea, that, okay, can we somehow, from a youthful perspective, we're teenagers at the time, so it's kind of innocent, but also
maximalismic or something.
Yeah, I mean, we also literally didn't know what would have been. I mean, we didn't know what would have been, what had been done, what hasn't been done, what's like cringy and what isn't. So we could just do whatever we felt like, which was really liberating. So I created this. I just went to some local church. It was to ask if I could do a concert, and if they could. They paid just about enough money for me to pay the travels for like loads of of friends that I met in various places around the country to come and play for like a few days. And we really liked it. And the idea of having our own arena was really nice. Just even deciding what to play, which programs, and deciding how to play it felt very liberating at the time. And it wasn't so much in the beginning about founding an orchestra, it was about creating that space for one time in one place. And then of course after that one time, that one place, it was pretty clear that okay, we want one more time, one more place next year. Let's do it again in the summer. And since then it's pretty much just rolled on happening like that. And pretty quickly I sort of lost control over it, in the sense that people become involved and engaged, and still to this day we run it as a sort of volunteer association where anyone who plays in the orchestra is automatically a member of a sort of democratic organization, and there's a board that decides things. There's an artistic advisory board where I'm, as artistic director, kind of running things, deciding programs, deciding everything that we do is decided by the musicians themselves, which is also another thing that I think is quite unique. And another critique that I have of classical music world is that the musicians are quite removed from the decisions quite a lot of the time, and there's a sort of quite a big bureaucratic side to it. And like, if I try to this theme for this talk of sort of crossing borders for artistic expressions is it's something we've done naturally quite a lot of, actually. Maybe more with the focus on the music than anything else, because our feeling from the beginning and our motivation has been that we need to sort of present the music in a way that resonates with people. So using other forms of art to make the music more accessible to people has been the sort of motivation behind doing that kind of project, or those kinds of projects for me. But we have done quite a few in the past. We've done collaborations with actors creating like sort of fairy tale stories alongside the music. We had one concert that was a collaboration with a sort of local amateur artists collective with like mostly older people that like to paint or sculpture things, and we created a prompt for I don't know, they had like one sentence of text to express themselves out of, and then we used the same to create a concert program and things like that. We have done also different genres of music. I think that kind of crossbreeding is just as important as between, because there's so many different implications of the genre that it's almost, I mean, my view is that music is music, and like anything that makes a sound and that is organized in any sort of way or with the purpose of expressing something is by definition music. However, I think in the view of the audience, though, I think the genre divide between music, different kinds of music, might be just as strong as between different sort of clear sections of art. So we've done in our debut album, we recorded a piece that we commissioned by a Swedish composer. He wrote fictitious folk music sets in the world of Tintin. In
the world of
from Tintin. So from the comic books.
Yeah.
Fictitious folk music from the comic books. Also, so it's like multi-layered. It's based on the fictitious sort of culture of Moldavia, and then composed fictitious folk music based on the culture of Moldavia, and then coming at it from a sort of classical composer's perspective in taking this fictitious folk music and setting it for an orchestra as Bartok would have done. Maybe is the idea. So that's another thing that I'm just really proud that we did. And of course, that idea doesn't come necessarily from me, but from the composer. And I think that's really cool. What else have we done? We've done stuff with acrobats and things as well. But I think the point is just that we're very open to it. But again, for us or for me, the point has always been to elevate the music, and of course, other artists from other disciplines will have the motivation of elevating. It's crossbreeding, really. Things elevate each other, and that's where everyone benefits. So yeah,
That sounds all very interesting.
us.
Just a couple of like questions for people to kind of
Yeah.
a little bit understand the conditions of all those things you're. So the orchestra is chamber, right? It's strings only. It's no winds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
how big is the orchestra?
There's usually 20 to, I mean, around 20, a little more usually, between 20 and 23 usually.
2023. And then it's a project-based orchestra. So you're meeting
Yes.
for how many times a year?
That varies a bit. I mean, it's still the case that we have the summer as our canvas, like where we can do exactly what we want. So that's what we guarantee. We have a festival in the summer and usually go on tour, or we always go on tour, which is where we get to do our thing. Apart from that, we do collaborations with other venues or other artists on demand.
On request.
More.
Yeah.
On request, more like that. We played at an accordion festival last week, actually, in Stockholm.
Wow.
Accordion thing. It's like 10 accordions playing at the same time with us. It's fun. And in about a month, not even a month, in a few weeks, we're doing a celebration of Arvo Pärd's 90th birthday in Gothenburg. We played music by Arvo Pärd. So there's things like that that we do if we're asked, or if there's some sort of exciting thing coming up.
Stimulant.
The summer is the main. It's where we get. And also, I was going to say that, of course, over the years, it's not all the same people that now as it was, of course, when I started it, it was 12, 13 years ago. But quite a few of the people are the same, and we've sort of followed each other in ages. Usually, also that it's been within a few years always, which means that we've had very different sort of periods of life to deal with. What we as an organization or as we as an orchestra need to offer to our members, if they're high school students or music college students or freelancers or hired employees, is very different. And we've gone from being 100% high school students to be 100% college students to be now 100% professional. Not 100% freelance, but some freelancers and some people with jobs in orchestras. And what we our opportunity for what to do has differed. The possibility to do things all through the year was probably the greatest when we were in music college, because it was easier to combine with studies at music college than it was at high school. And now it comes down to money quite a lot of the time, that if we can't pay the musicians, they're gonna lose salary and lose money. Can't really.
Where does the money come from? If are you selling tickets, or is there foundations, or how do you finance that?
I think as with most art and most classical music, there's the big bulk of the money is from grants. It's both from sort of private foundations, but mainly from the region, from the Gothenburg region where we're based, is the main contributor. And we always tend to, like, overexcited. We tend to give them quite a bit more than what they pay for. And I think that's a good thing when you apply the year after. You show you can make a lot with less. So it's quite stable at the moment, but you never know. It's we're dependent on that all the time.
There was one thing kind of caught me when you send me the topic of your presentation, that you're going to be talking about orchestra by artists for artists. And while I totally understand what means by artists, I got a little bit interested. What do you mean that it's for artists? So is that kind of a philosophical thing, that you are sort of addressing everything you do mostly for the artists themselves?
Well, yes and no. What I meant by that was that I think it's a very unique thing to have that we're. I mean, there's no one involved in running the orchestra who isn't themselves playing in the orchestra. That's the main thing. So that every decision, even like sort of logistical decisions or structural decisions, usually come from a point of view which is the artist's point of view. So we don't have to struggle at all to create that point of view. Whereas I think having been involved in professional orchestras now for a while, it's quite a lot of the time an ongoing struggle to get a sort of artistic perspective into the decision-making process. But we've simply solved that problem by not having anyone who is not an artist making decisions. And also that the automatic involvement of you in the association, if you play as a member of the orchestra, you're a member of the association, and you have a vote on
the program.
meeting, and you automatically, and you can't really abstain from that. You don't have to choose to be part of that decision making process, but you kind of have to. It's part of the deal.
I see. It's kind of, since we have an opportunity talking to a concertmaster of an orchestra, maybe you could tell a little bit how is the usual programming process is in the big orchestras all over the world. How is this working? Because it's maybe more relevant to us and easier to understand what you mean by this difference, that it's artists only who are making decisions. How are those decisions made in the classical, usual, traditional orchestras?
Well, I wish I knew more about it. I guess I would have known more about it had it been the way I think it should be. But of course, like it's also not what I'm saying is not necessarily always a critique against something else. Also, even though it might sound like it. I know it's impossible to run an opera house without a management. Like you can't just have the musicians sort of running things themselves. But we are small enough to be able to do that, so we're trying to make the most out of that. But of course, there's people in charge who haven't played in an orchestra maybe ever, or who haven't been on stage at a high level, haven't been a soloist, haven't done all those sorts of things. And of course, I'm not saying they're making bad decisions. I'm just saying that the perspective
is different.
It's different. I think also for big institutions, I have to say that I think the importance of the role that agencies play in the decision of programming is probably way too big, in my view. Also for natural reasons. Everyone wants the big soloist because everyone feels pressure to sell tickets and to sort of prove value to the audience. But sometimes I think the influence of agencies seems too big. And of course, we don't deal with that at all because we deal directly with people. Also, again, because we're not big enough. Like, had we had a $1 million budget, of course we would have to deal with agents because we would also want big names. You know, it's sometimes it's a privilege to be small.
Of course. But I mean, sort of to just a little bit like perhaps be more precise. I kind of really appreciate the program the opera suggests in Stockholm. It's a wonderful program, usually very balanced, in my opinion. Little know about the opera itself, but it seemed very balanced and everything. They have a lot of classics, a lot of bigs, some of the small works. But some orchestras sometimes over Scandinavia, not only in Stockholm but also Oslo and others. Very often I feel like it's very much, you can see very clearly the patterns in the program, that 30% has to be in this category, 30% has to be in this category, and the category and those categories I'm talking about are usually have nothing to do with the artistic choices. It's usually something like politically decided or something like that. And was that partly what you meant? I kind of read into while you were speaking.
I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to. I mean, I'm gonna try a different approach, and that is, for example, if I take it straight from the opera, I think we have done at the opera really amazing things sometimes that don't get the sort of that we should have more faith in what is quality, because we know what is really good, and like I feel like we in the orchestra we can. I mean, shit, it's difficult. We're all musicians, right? But we know really good music when we hear it, and we know when to have really faith in something. There's like a production, for example, now it's coming back in the spring, but a production that I think was really amazing, Der Ferne Klang by Franz Schäke. It's a slightly unknown opera by a slightly unknown composer that I think sometimes tends to get a little bit sidelined, because you don't automatically sell tickets with slightly unknown operas by slightly unknown composers. And I think the fact, for example, that if we were running it from the artist's point of view, you would know that this is good, and you would know that also as a big institution, you're selling tickets, of course, and the audience is always the most important thing. But you also have the opportunity to somewhat educate and somewhat
promote,
tell people what is good. And I'm convinced that some things, if we just believed in them and they would come back regularly, and you would market them properly, would sell tickets and would be more interesting to people than to hear Carmen for the billionth time. Sorry.
We love Carmen.
Staying curious and believing in what you think is good, I think is really important. So, for example, of course, the financial part of things play a role. Of course, the marketing departments of any institution plays a role, I think. What is easy to market, or what is fun to market, or what is, I'm it's a critique of my own workplace, but I'm sometimes shocked. I feel sometimes it feels like we're marketing the things that sell already and not marketing the things that struggle a little bit more. Because it's easier to sell Carmen than it is to sell Wozzeck. But maybe.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's very valid. I would kind of vouch for the other side, though, of course, because they have to think also logically, and they even thinking of promoting music and art generally. It's easier to promote it with like maybe very, very famous opera by Bizet rather than a new one by Wojciech. But I totally get the point about a little bit more trust into good music, a little bit more understanding. But again, the bigger you are, as you said, the more limitations you have when it comes to these risky decisions.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm really not trying to say that the opera in Stockholm should do anything different necessarily, because being an organization of that size comes with its opportunities and limitations. But now talking about my own orchestra, or the chamber orchestra, is what is we're trying to make the most out of our opportunity, and the opportunity is that we're small enough and insignificant enough.
Yeah, coming back to that, I was curious if this different principles of programming kind of more orientated on the artistic value and choice of the artists themselves. Have you noticed the response from the audience? Do they appreciate that choices you make? Simply saying, like, this music, for example, which you ordered and was written based on that comic book, do you think that had if you can somehow make those assumptions, was it perceived better than if you would be playing some super duper pop known piece by, I don't know, Bizet or whoever?
It's not that we don't play known pieces, but I think what is absolutely 100% clear is that the audience notices when we play something we enjoy playing. Whereas if we play something that we don't enjoy playing, even if it's for their enjoyment, it's not as enjoyable for anyone, really. But sort of we put a lot of value into the connection between us and the audience as humans. We try to sort of erase that iron curtain between the stage and the auditorium. And I think sort of a really simple emotional connection way to do that is try to just enjoy the music together. And that means that we have to enjoy the music. So I'm absolutely 100% positive that they can, and they have said also that they can tell the difference between music that we enjoy playing and music that we don't necessarily enjoy playing when it's work or when it's passion.
I see.
There's a difference. So I think that's important. Also, again, it's possible in a small orchestra. It's not possible to have an opera house do something that is a passion project for 500 people, because they're trying to work together. And there's 500 different opinions, but we have 20 different opinions, so we usually can most of the time find something that unites us and that we all enjoy playing.
I also wanted to ask you if you don't mind, because it resonated a lot with me what you just mentioned, that there is much more craftsmanship in the classical music nowadays than passion and art. How could you expand that thought a little bit? It seemed like you see a certain crisis in nowadays situation in the classical music.
I don't know, I don't know, but it's gone. Everything's going more specialized. I think that's true for other genres of music also. Maybe that means that you play not just folk music, but folk music from a certain area, you're very specific. But I think in the classical world, that has largely meant that you either perform, or you compose, or you direct, or you all those things. Whereas historically, in the past, it was absolutely obvious that if you play, you compose, as it is in many other genres, that you're not just a player of an instrument, but you're also a sort of artist. I think we've lost that a little bit in the classical world, on the altar of being more specialized and being more
competition,
more skilled.
Yeah.
Skilled in their instruments. I also came up with that thought during Maimu's talk in regards to what was it? It was I lost track now. With classical music, I completely lost track. What's the question?
Question is, if you find that problematic, the concept that it becomes more and more craftsmanship rather than art.
I'll find my thought again. It's that the classical music world, from early education to wherever you go, has such a clear path that like the career opportunities are dependent on your performance on your instrument, not on your performance as an artist generally. That if you can play your instrument well enough, you will get a job and you can be a professional. Whereas I think in many other music genres, it's not all dependent on, you can be as skilled as you like on the guitar. Of course, there's studio musicians that are just very, very good in their instruments, also in many genres. But I think it's not as harshly predicated on the idea that you outshine others on your instrument, but rather that you have a voice that resonates with people as an artist. I think I would be very happy if we could find our way a little bit more back to that in classical music. I would strongly encourage, if there's anyone young who's listening to this and playing their instrument, because also I think a lot of us have had it when we were younger, expressing ourselves with our instruments. And I actually think it's the harshness and competitiveness of the classical world that kind of forces us into focusing on one thing more than the other. That if you're a violinist that is also composing, fucking continue to compose. I think that's extremely important. If you're leaning more towards composing and you're thinking that's your future career, continue to play. I think to keep these like different paths of exploring music open is really important. I think that's what I meant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Just a follow-up question in that. I mean, while you're talking, I was thinking about this one famous pianist who had this interview once, and on a similar question he was answering that how he describes the situation with the classical music is that in old times there were pianists competing and playing music, and now they're competing in whose fifth finger is stronger and quicker. And that sort of is the side effect of this extreme competition and specialization, that now we are really training our fingers to be quickest or fastest instead of like an artistic value in what we do. I guess that's the price we pay. But since you acknowledge that kind of problem, what would you think would be a step to what can we do to change that? We musicians, those who make decisions in the classical music world or wherever. Do you see any solutions to that, to make that change?
I think, well, off the top of my head, I think, again, trying to create platforms where people are allowed and not having to fight their way to the top in order to in one, like if you imagine all of these paths, like it right now it's if you don't go all the way to the end of that path, you're not going to get an opportunity to perform. So like if for example, starting with the instrument, like in order to get to a professional level on your instrument, you have to dedicate everything. I mean, it's so it makes sense, the competition thing, of course. Like maybe there's a bunch of people who kept all these paths equally open and they didn't quite reach the top in any of them, and they're now not seen anymore. But that's my solution, that like don't require people to be at the top level in order to get to perform. For example, I would strongly encourage that. I will try to do this more in the future, and I think I'm trying to do it a little bit with my orchestra also, that people who are just interested in composing, for example, get to write pieces and get them performed.
And perform with their own. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
I think that's super interesting. You shouldn't have to wait for a commission, because that's the culture in the classical world.
Yes, Maimu.
Compose on commission. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, Maimu.
Yeah, I was just thinking to say, if anyone's looking for perfection, we have AI for that.
Yeah, it's coming. It's really breathing in your back.
Yeah.
Just to inspire people who are actually living beings. They're perfect within their imperfections. They don't have to be on top. I resonate with that. Just wanted to.
Yeah. But that's sort of Yes, go.
I just think that, like, with our main goal being resonating with the audience, who are also happen to be living, breathing people with imperfections, then I think it's best if we try to lean into our humanity also, and to our creativity in a way. I don't know. So that would be my solution to create performance opportunities for aspiring, or not even aspiring, just like composers or conductors or musicians or whatever, just to encourage the act of creating rather than the act of achieving perfection, which we're of course all. I mean, the reason that I say that I arrange on a sort of creative level rather than that I compose is because I'm scared, of course. Like composing is really scary, and there's not really at the moment a space where you can try stuff and fail. There should be many more spaces like that.
Just wanted to add that
also within the music education, I think it should be broader generally, and I think it should be like, of course, you're specialized in classical music, but I think it's a shame that you study quite a lot of the time in a. I mean, you study a classical program. Of course, you chose that, but you study music after all, and music is such a huge thing, and you should be educated in other kinds of music automatically. Maybe it's just needing that experience that you're kind of shielded in the classical world from other genres, but you are. And there's also a little bit of a jargon of elitism, I think, within the classical music world, where somehow that our music is somehow more expressive or more creative or on a higher level than. But I firmly just don't believe in that whatsoever. I think good music and less good music exists within any genre, and that the best of the best within any kind of music exists on a similar level. And the complexities come from different sides. And our focus on now, I mean, I'm thinking out loud, and it's ending up all over the place. I know it may be hard to follow, but in the classical world, I think sometimes our focus on notation, for example, that like notationally, our music with big scores with like 50 different parts and little accidentals and so many notes seems more complex and interesting than other music that doesn't is not rooted in notation.
Sure. It's very similar to NordSync's values we promote also, because we find a lot of inspiration in the artists and musicians of like ages of enlightenment, when nobody could actually survive on being a violinist. You had to be, I don't know, chemistry teacher or I don't know, writing books, and music was something you do on the side, and therefore there was suddenly much more artistic value, or not much more, but there was certainly an artistic value in everything they were doing. One last question, I think, and I'm being a little bit selfish, being a violinist. I was always curious on and having opportunity to ask a concertmaster. It's always a great opportunity, and I don't want to miss it. I was curious, and maybe many violinists who are studying now, and like in their active studying phase, you know, they're listening to those great violinists. I don't know, Stern, Oystra, Heifetz, great violinists of the past epoch, and they are trying to get as good and maybe in some way replicate what they hear, be as good as them. And at the same time, now being grown up, I'm kind of very often think that Oistrakh wouldn't get a job in the orchestra. Like, you know, if he would perform on the audition the way he played, he wouldn't get a job in any orchestra nowadays. And I kind of get why. It's not like a criticism. I perfectly understand. I wouldn't probably employ Oistrakh to play the way he plays in the section. But what do you think, being a concertmaster, leading a section, would that be a variant for you to have? Would you prefer having a section of 12 different musicians of Oistrakh, Stern, Heifetz scale, which playing very different, but are all amazing, and probably they are quite much responding to your own qualification of what the art is and what the values are, and that you have to be, you know, not afraid of speaking with your own voice, or that would destroy the section, destroy the orchestra, and in this way you would prefer, I don't know, an average skilled violinist. That sounds kind of bad, but you know, like let's say we take a copy of Oistrakh and just duplicate it 12 times. You know, like sometimes sitting in the studio and making a soundtrack for a movie, which doesn't have so much money, they pay you so that you can play 12 times and they get an orchestra. But this orchestra sounds very weird. I don't know if you've done it. I have a couple of times.
I was gonna say that actually. Like I have a few things to say about this. Let's start with that one then. That like I've been trying sometimes to sort of record myself multiple times and try to create an orchestral sound. It's not possible. And like whenever you see, I don't know, on TikTok, Instagram, you see those things with people layering their voice into chorus sounding things, and you see how they do it is that they dramatically change their voice in order to create the sort of sound of the whole. So I think the basic foundation is that you can't have a duplicated one kind of sound to achieve what we think is a good sounding orchestra, is a good sounding violin section even. And also the orchestra itself is built upon many different instruments, of course, and the difference between instruments is when push comes to shove, just the sort of the overtones, like the only difference between an oboe and a violin is the overtones, which is true. Like if you analyze the sounds, it's just a overtonal series that like what stands out and which registers are flaring up and which are not. And of course within every player of the same instrument and also every physical instrument, the instrument that we play, there's also a difference, and I think that difference is quite important. That's my first point. So I actually am a little bit allergic. I don't have the sort of scientific understanding of this. I would like to do research on this at some point, like what actually sounds better. If it sounds better for everyone to have the same vibrato, or for everyone to have the same bow stroke, or if it actually sounds more integrated and mixed if we deliberately play differently. Sometimes it's because of the theory that I have based on the sort of chorus layering of recordings that I'd like to try out. So I'm a little bit allergic to us defaulting to wanting to do the same as each other. Also because secondly, it's never going to be possible anyway. It doesn't matter how much we try to be the same. We're not going to be the same, and I think that's great. So I would say to young musicians that like what I usually say is that however good you get trying to sound like someone else, it's not going to be as good as the best version you can create from what you already have. Like the best version of you as a player is going to be better than you trying to be someone else, no matter how good you get at trying to be someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like even though you might want to sound like Oistrakh, of course, you can aspire to that, but when it comes to it in the end, in the performance, I think you need to try to be the best version of yourself. That sounds cheesy, all that, but I think it's true. Trying to please others, especially in an audition setting, is like not really possible. In audition, you've got a jury of from maybe 10 people to, in the like most extreme situations, like 100 people juries, which is what they have in like Germany with the whole orchestra listening. I had a jury of like 35 people, I think, when I auditioned for my concertmaster job. You're not going to please everyone. It's just not possible. And since you can't please everyone, like you have to kind of choose who to please. And the only one you can choose to please, because the only one you know what they actually think, is yourself. So first and foremost, make sure you do something you're proud of and that you think sounds good. And then it's quite likely that other people will agree. The last thing that I'd like to say about this, the thing that you got into about Oistrakh being in an orchestra, I think it's a weird idea that we have this, that it's even possible to be a great musician without being a good listener and a good adapter. I don't really understand that. Like if someone comes into the orchestra with a soloistic sound and like does that really great in the audition and plays a fantastic concerto that is like over the top soloist like kind of sound, that tells me really nothing about how they would react to a sort of pianissimo underneath the singer in the middle of Tosca. But assuming they're good musicians, I'm going to assume that, like, of course, assuming that Oistrakh was a good musician, I'm going to assume that he wouldn't play the way he does on his Brahms recording in a tutti section. So it's kind of a moot point in a way. Like, I think the sign of a really great musician is adaptability most of the time, and being able to sort of react to your surroundings. And that's the core of orchestra playing as well. And you're right that there's many examples of people who've come through auditions that are great at auditioning, but not very great at playing music. But that's also why I want to encourage people to play and to sort of have fun and enjoy themselves, rather than to try to play the fastest or the loudest or even the most beautiful. Sometimes can be limiting if it's not in relation to anything else. Again, I hear myself sounding really cheesy. I'm aware of it.
That's allowed. No, but thank you for that comment. I think it's very interesting. But just like, because I thought a lot about, and I've also talked to people a lot, talking about the sound of the section. And orchestra being a collective of so many musicians, you have to sort of have a certain idea of how they all should sound. But and I think it's a kind of an understanding most of the orchestras having nowadays. It seems like it's sort of kind of a standard how much of the freedom you allow yourself when you are playing in the orchestras and stuff. It's a certain kind of a little bit something middle. And I was always curious. It's very practical. I can definitely hear that. But at the same time, my kind of artist and maximalist in my heart sort of wants to hear an orchestra combining of a very, very different solo sounding musicians. And for some reason, as you said, probably because we're assuming if you are good at performing solo, you would be able to adapt your ears and somehow build a common sound with your partners, which are the same level as you are. So it's like, I was always curious if it's possible to have an orchestra of soloists, or it has to be different kind of values in the sound, in the aesthetics you have to be looking for.
I mean, you can't. I think the key is that, like, when you're sitting like in an orchestra in a first violin section, for example, you have to have at the sort of forefront of your being the sound of the section, not the sound of yourself. If you have a bunch of people who are interested in the sound of themselves while they're playing in a section, you're probably not going to get a very good section. But as long as those people have sort of as their main focus the sound of the group, you're fine, even with soloists. And I can't imagine, like, you're not a very good soloist either if you're only concerned with the sound of yourself. if you're only concerned with that, you're sort of missing out on the music. You're missing out on the context. Like even in big concertos, there's moments where you need to step back as a soloist and let the orchestra take the lead, and you just color it. I think the greatest soloists will achieve that. So I think it's absolutely possible to have orchestras full of soloists. I think Berlin's Hill kind of is an example of that. It kind of play like that. So it's
so their sound is different somehow. Like yeah.
But I also always say, in discussions that regard sort of blending, because quite often you come across this ideal that orchestral musicians, or especially string players, need to blend. We need to blend together. That's the most important quality that we have. You're blending. But my response to that is that you not only do you have to blend, but you have to provide something for others to blend with.
You have to bring something in, yeah.
Because if there's only people that are focusing on blending, there's nothing to blend into, and then it will not sound very good.
Yeah.
It will not sound very much. Anyway.
Yes.
So you need, and ideally every single individual has both. But maybe some people are more directed towards blending, to like listening in and finding their place, and some people are more directed towards sort of driving things forward. I think that's fine.
Yes, I really apologize for the audience who are not violinists listening to our discussion, but I just had to use the chance. It's always very interesting to talk about those things, and it's really great having you, Carl, joining us today and giving me and us opportunity to hear you and ask those questions. Just a sweep turn back to where we started, because I got into that question just by thinking about your response and your line about the craftsmanship versus artistry in the modern classic music, and I think it was very kind of inspiring insight in how it feels being on the inside of the big state orchestra in Scandinavia, one of the biggest and best orchestras in the region, and at the same time deciding to run your own smaller, totally differently based orchestra. I think there is a lot of inspiration in what you do, and we wish you luck a lot. And if you don't mind, we will put you have a webpage, right, or a Facebook page? We can put it on our. I think it's interesting for many people to see what you guys do, and maybe come to your next concerts. Are you often in Norway?
We haven't been to Norway for quite a long time, so if someone from Norway is is keen on getting us there, we're very open to that.
Sure, we can talk about it. We would really love to have you. I think your idea is really resonating with the demand. The world needs orchestras like Skallsjö Sommarorkester. I think it's really great. Thank you so much. Maimu, thank you so much for joining us. It was extremely insightful to see how you work and go through life being an accordionist, a folk musician, doing all your different interdisciplinary productions. I really am looking for a coffee / folk music project. I'm really excited. Let's talk about later. I think we need to find a way to do it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for spending this time on Sunday again. I hope we meet again. For everybody else who is looking or gonna look for it, it's gonna be in recording on YouTube. I remind you that this year we got support for this format and also our more traditional formats such as NordSync Forum, and the next one is gonna take place in Mo i Rana, 25th to 26th of October. If you're living in Nordland or Troms in Norway, just let me know. We even might be able to cover your expenses for travel. For the rest of you who are living a little bit far, please just follow us on Facebook and on our website. We're going to be streaming all our seminars and meetings. Just keep in touch, stay in touch, and I see you again very soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you so much.